Okay, so you know what I find kind of wild? Like, it's a bit mind-blowing when you think about it.
No.
Governments, right? Huge organizations, tons of bureaucracy, piles of red tape, and they might actually be messing around with cryptocurrency. Today, we're going to look into a report. It says that the U.S. government has something called a strategic crypto reserve.
Yeah, that's right. And the details of it. Well, at least according to this podcast, Crypto and Coffee, this is where we got this information. It's pretty interesting stuff. We're talking Bitcoin, Ethereum, and get this, 69,000 author Dogecoin.
69,000 Dogecoin. Okay, that's
Hmm.
pretty funny. Bitcoin, Ethereum, I get it. Those are like the big ones, make sense strategically, I guess. But Dogecoin, I mean, isn't that the meme coin? This makes you think, what's really going on here?
You're right. The Dogecoin thing is like a bit of a head scratcher. And Crypto and Coffee pointed this out too. It's not just about strategy. Why pick that one right?
Exactly. So that's what we're really digging into today.
Yeah.
Why would the U.S. government hold crypto, and what does it mean if they actually are? This isn't like your usual investments, right?
Totally different. One thing Crypto and Coffee talked about was this idea of a geopolitical power move. Think about it. Other countries are doing their own thing with digital currencies. China's got their digital yuan, and there's even talk of Russia and ruble NFTs. So maybe the US feels like they need to get in the game too. They don't want to be left out as things change.
So it's like a whole new kind of global competition. Countries used to compete with armies and economies and technology, and now maybe it's crypto too.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it. The podcast definitely seems to see it that way. Like maybe the US government thinks this crypto reserve will give them power in a future where digital currency is a big deal for trade and finance and stuff. It's weird though, right? These decentralized assets are supposed to be outside of government control. Now they're being used for like state level strategy.
Which brings up a really big question. How do you control something that's designed to be decentralized like Bitcoin? I mean, isn't the whole point of crypto that it's not run by a central authority? It seems impossible.
That's the key. Things like blockchain, a distributed ledger. It's all about transparency and being decentralized. So the government can buy crypto, sure, but it's really hard for them to actually control the value or use it the same way they do with the dollar. Crypto and Coffee said it's like herding cats with lasers, which is pretty accurate, I think.
And that makes you wonder about another point they made. Could this whole thing just be for show? Maybe the government just wants to look cool and tech savvy. Like they get it, even if they don't really have a plan.
Yeah, especially with all the hype around cryptocurrency.
Yep.
It makes sense to announce something like this just to show people that they're paying attention, that they're not out of touch. It could be a way to reassure people who are into crypto that the government's on board, even if they don't really know what they're doing yet.
But the podcast also talked about another possibility, which is actually kind of exciting. What if the Federal Reserve used these crypto holdings to, like, manipulate the market? Imagine if the market crashed and they could use their Bitcoin or Ethereum to, like, stabilize things. Pretty wild, right?
It would be a huge deal, and it brings
Right.
up so many questions. Are they allowed to do that?
Right.
Is that market manipulation? What would the effects be? The idea of controlling volatility sounds good, but messing with crypto like that could have all sorts of crazy consequences that nobody's even thought of.
And we can't forget about security, which the podcast also brought up. What happens if the government loses the private keys to their wallets?
Okay.
Anyone who's ever used crypto knows that if you lose your keys, you've lost your crypto. There's no getting it back.
Yeah.
And now imagine that happening on a national scale.
It's a huge risk. I mean, who's actually in charge of keeping those keys safe?
Yeah.
Government agencies. There's always the possibility of human error, cyber attacks, people on the inside stealing stuff. The decentralized system has its benefits, but it also means that the security is entirely on the holder. If those keys are gone, the money's gone.
So basically what we've got here is this report about a strategic crypto reserve and crypto and coffee is saying it could be a big power move by the U.S.
Yeah.
But then there's all these other questions. Can governments really control something that's decentralized? Is this a real plan or just a PR stunt? And how do they keep these digital assets safe?
Exactly. The podcast talked about all of those different viewpoints. Some people think it's just for show, and others think it could change everything about how we use digital currency. It just shows how much uncertainty there is around this whole thing.
It's definitely something to think about. Like, what if governments, especially a big one like the U.S., are starting to use these decentralized currencies? What does that mean for the future of money and for how countries interact with each other? Is this just a phase, or are we seeing a really fundamental change in how nations will use digital assets in the future? It's worth thinking about. Thanks for listening to this deep dive with us today.